All right. I think everything's on here. Everything's going. You can see me all right, which doesn't matter, but okay, so let's just get to it. So worksheet 8.6, you said section 3 and section 4. Okay, so on number 3, where it's talking about proportions. So let me just pull my pen up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do number 3A with you, or for you, I guess, let you kind of follow along. And then on B, I'll do it, but I'll kind of go slow so that you can do it and try to get it before me. We'll kind of do it together. And then on C, I'll let you do it yourself, and then we'll check it. Make sure you got it right. Okay? All right, because you've done these before. You know, you've been doing this in this chapter, but it's been a while since we've been in our math, so that's okay. All right. So number 3A. So if a yield of potatoes is 400 bushels per acre, what is the yield for 2.5 acres? All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to write our ratio down that it gives us. So if 400 bushels, I'm just going to put B. So if 400 bushels is for 1 acre, that's what they gave us, okay? All right, now the question is, what is the yield for 2.5 acres? Okay, so now we're writing our proportion. This is a ratio. This here is going to be a proportion because a proportion is an equivalent ratio. Okay, so that means the only number that they did not give us is the yield, or the bushel. So we need to know the bushel. Because remember, I remember when I was in school and we were doing these, I remember thinking, how do they know which one goes on top? I never could figure it out, and nobody would ever answer me. But the one that you need goes on top, and we need the yield, or the bushel, because it gives us 2.5 acres, and we're going to write that like this rather than a fraction, because if you put a fraction under a fraction, sometimes it gets confusing. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just do our multiplication. Okay, so we're going to multiply across, and we're going to get 400 . And I think it says, yeah, it says you can use your calculator, so let me pull it up. So that's not right. That's not right. The answer is 1,000. I don't remember how they did that. Acres and acres, bushels and bushels. The answer is, oh, I haven't done this in a while either. The answer is 1,000. That's what the answer is. And the reason why I'm dividing, but it's 400 times 2.5. It's this, because we have to cross multiply, I guess is what it is. So the answer is 1,000 bushels. I was going across, but we do this. So it's 4. This is acre. 400 times 2.5. That would be 1,000. I'm trying to remember where in the book it shows. I haven't done these in so long. Oh wow, I was going to go across. Let me see. Let's look at 8 points. See, chapter 8. Yeah. So the beginning of chapter 8. You might want to go back and just kind of look over it just a little bit. Trying to see. 8.2 goes over the proportions. And let's see. Okay, so it looks like on page 172 of your book is going to kind of tell us proportions often help us solve real life problems. Say you're planning a party, blah, blah. We're not going to go through all that. So anyway, they wrote it down. 2 quarts to 8 people is how many quarts if there were 96 people. All right, notice the denominators are 8 and 96. So what would we have to multiply or divide 8 by to get 96? So you'd have to multiply 8 by 12 to get 96, because remember we're making an equivalent fraction. This is equivalent. Just forget about the B's and the acres. Just think of the numbers. It has to be equivalent across. Okay, so 1 times 2.5 would give you 2.5, and then 400 times 2.5 would give you 1,000. Because remember, these are equivalent. So that's why that is. So if you'll finish looking on page 172 in your book, kind of just below the middle, underneath where it says 96 divided by 8 equals 12, if we'd have to multiply 8 by 12 to get 96, then we'd have to multiply the entire first ratio by 12 over 12 to form an equivalent ratio with 96 as the denominator. So that's why it shows you that it's equivalent fractions. That's why it's like this. It's not cross multiplying. Let me give you an example. You might be rolling your eyes. Oh, Michelle, I know this. Okay. If this were our ratio and we needed a proportion, which means an equivalent ratio or an equivalent fraction, well, we know that this is times 3. So then this would be times 3. So the equivalent ratio then would be 9. That's what we do up here. I needed a refresher on that. Okay. I hope that makes sense. I hope I didn't lose you. I have a very good way of doing that. All right, so then let's look at number, hold on just a second. Let's look at number 3B. If a yield of potatoes is 400.23 bushels per acre, what's the yield for 0.5 of an acre, half an acre? Same thing. So it's 400, and you can use your calculator, it says, so make sure you have your calculator close by. Per acre. I'm not putting the letters. It's too difficult for me on this thing. What's the yield for half an acre? Oh, I better. Acres on the bottom, bushels on the top. So we don't know the bushel, but the acre that we know is 0.5. Okay. So now to get the answer here, see if you can figure it out what it is. Remember, this is an equivalent, it needs to be an equivalent fraction. I'm going to put the answer. $200.12 bushels. Reason why, let me do a different color, because we got to keep we got to keep these equivalent, just like we're doing the fractions, when we're doing fractions. So 1 times what gives you this? 0.5. Right? So whatever happens down here has to happen up here. So I have to multiply 0.5. Everything has to be multiplied by the same things. So then, to get this answer, it would be 400.23 times 0.5. So you get that. They just rounded this. Okay? These are equivalent fractions. And don't worry, because I had to refresh my own memory. All right, so let me just let you try. See, it's different. It's using different things. So just pause it for just a second and then do that, and then I'll work it with you. Make sure you got it right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and work C with you. So if it costs $4.95 for 250 yards of ribbon, that's your first ratio, $4.95 to $2.50. Just write that down. Yards, I put that like money. And this is money. What I'm doing. Okay, what would the cost be for 750 yards? Okay, yards goes on the bottom because yards is on the bottom. And then what we want goes on top, and we need the price. That's what it's asking. So always remember what we want goes on top. Okay, all right, so your answer with doing all the calculations should have been $14.85. I hope you got that right. So basically, since we're trying to figure this out here, and these need to be, they're proportions, they have to be equivalent fractions. So you got to figure out 250 times what equals this. Well, obviously you'd have to divide 3. 750 divided by 250 gives you 3. So that means 250 times 3 gives you 750. Well, if you do times 3 here, then you got to do times 3 here. Remember when we were doing equivalent fractions? So $4.95 times 3 would give you what? Would give you this. No, she was in there first. Would give you that. Okay, so they're equivalent fractions. So I hope that makes sense to you. All right, so then you said section 4, making business decisions. Oh my. Okay, business, business, business. Proverbs 31 lady was a business lady, wasn't she? She sure was. So let's apply some knowledge to this. All right, so, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5. So let me help you with a couple, and then we'll pause and let you try to work one, and then we'll save the last 2 maybe for you to try on your own at home, okay, like without me. All right, so if you need 3.5 yards of ribbon to make one wreath. Now, I think these are just simple little proportions, like what we were just doing. They've just put it into like a story. Okay, so if you need 3.5 yards of ribbon to make one wreath, and you want to make 26 wreaths to sell at a fundraiser, how many yards of ribbon do you need? Okay, so we just set this up as a proportion. All right, so we need, this is our proportion, 3.5 yards to one wreath. I'm just going to put W. That's our proportion. That's our ratio. All right. Now we know that yards is going to go here, and we know that how many wreaths is going to go here. So it says we want to make 26 wreaths, and so the number we need is yards, which is on top, because that's how it's supposed to be. All right. So you know what to do here? Okay, so you should multiply this by 26, because 1 times 26 gives you 26. So 3.5 times 26 then would give you 91 yards. I don't know if that comes out evenly or not. Times 26. Yeah, 91 yards. Okay? All right, good. Hope you understand it. Let's do B right quick. If each yard of ribbon costs 99 cents plus a total of $7.50 shipping for an unlimited number of yards, how much will it cost you to make the wreaths described in 4A? All right, so we know that we're going to make 26 wreaths, and we need 91 yards of ribbon. Okay, so each yard is 99 cents plus $7.50 for shipping. An unlimited number of yards. In other words, $7.50 for as little or as much as you want. So how much will it cost to make the wreaths? Well, how many wreaths are we making? 91. How much does it cost per yard, 99 cents, right? Okay, so figure that out on your calculator. You should have gotten $90.09. Okay, then you got to add in the shipping. There you go. $97.59 would be your final answer. Make sense? That one was pretty easy. Okay, that's how you would do it. I hope that makes sense to you. All right, let's then look at letter C. All right, so I'm going to help you with this one, and then I'm going to have you do D and E on your own. I hope you can do them. Okay, if you can't, it's okay, but I'm not going to go over D and E with you. Okay, actually I'm not, but just giving you the answers on them. So if you have a 5 5/6 acre section of land, and you'd like to plant half of it with apple trees and half with peach trees, you can fit 40 apple trees per acre. So how many apple trees can you plant? All right, so 5 5/6 acres is our total acreage. That's almost 6 acres. Okay, half the land, because it says, let's see, you want to plant half of it. So half the land is going to be used for apples. So basically you need to figure out what half of 5.56 acres is. So that would be a multiplication problem. Now you might say, well, I can't do that, on a calculator, but we could figure it out on a calculator. We'd have to figure it out how to do it in. Half, is 0.5. We know that's 0.5. Okay, so let's go ahead and just do it this way rather than convert the fractions to decimals. We could do that, but we'll just do it this way. Half times, now when we multiply fractions, remember we can't leave them like this. We have to change them to be improper. So that would be 6 times 5 plus 5, so it would be 35 over 6. Multiply across. Okay. All right, and we're going to turn this back around. So 12 goes into 35 2 whole times with 11/12 left over. Okay. So half of your acreage, you got 5 5/6, so half of that is 2 11/12. Okay, so that's the first step. Now the second step is, so you're going to plant half of it with apple trees, and so you had to figure out what half of that was. So it's 2 11/12. All right, you can fit 40 apple trees per acre, so it wants to know how many you could fit. So you're going to take this, and you're going to multiply it by 40. Is that it? No. By 40. Which of course would be over 1. So it'd be, you'll need to go ahead and change this into an improper fraction, which is this, because we just changed it back. So you're going to take 35 over 12, because this is this. Okay, so 35 over 12 times 40 over 1. Now, let me do this one with you. And the reason I say that is I want to make sure you know this secret. Okay, when you multiply fractions, you know that you can cross out. You can you can cross simplify before you multiply. And that way when you get your answer, it's already simplified. Now 35 and 1, they don't have anything in common. You can't do anything with 1. But 12 and 40 have something in common. Is it just 2? I think that's all they have in 2. Not 6. Yeah. So I think it would just be 2. So we can divide 12 and 40 by 2. So this would be 6, and this would be 20. keep thinking it has something else. Oh, yeah, it does have something else in common. Something better. How about 4? So this would be 3, and this would be 10. That makes it better. The numbers are smaller. Okay. I think I taught you that little trick. You don't have to do that. It just helps that when you multiply across, everything's already simplified. So 35 times 10 would be 350. 3 times 1 is 3. So now it needs to know how many trees this is. So basically you just divide. Okay, 116.66 blah 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 blah. But you can't plant point of a tree. So your answer would be 116 trees. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So let's do this. Okay, so let's, why don't you just pause it for a second and do D and E. Okay, when you turn it back on, I'll write the answers to those up here so that you can make sure you got those right. Okay? All right, so go ahead and pause it. Okay, so the answer for D, I'm not going to go through it, but the answer for D, the final answer, would have been 290. And then the answer for E, the final answer, would have been 9 feet. Okay, now that you have the answers, if you missed those, go back and find your own answers. That's what I've been having Addie to do. Not find her own answers, but find where she made the mistake. And that seems to help you a little bit better. Rather than me looking through it and saying, oh, this is where you messed up. You go back and see where you messed up. I hope you didn't. But if you did, go back over it now that you know the answer and see where you made your mistake. Because sometimes it's easier to fix it and know it and learn it if you find your own mistake. Okay? All right, I hope this helps a little bit. So let me know if you need any more help. Okay?